Wait a minute! What is that? Hello there, my fellow hunters, my fellow raiders of Sunbreak, as we while away each day imagining what could be, when could it be, how do you skip 6 months, and finally, no joy again. But did you know that there is every likely chance, that perhaps 3 of the upcoming new monsters are already all but staring us in the face?
Hello?
Okay, yes, but not Lunagaron. Up to 3 monsters that haven't even been announced yet in any kind of official capacity. And to really kind of elaborate where I'm going with this, last week I did a little bit of a talk on the idea of getting Espinas in Sunbreak, chiefly based on the fact that Espinas is based on a rose, and roses are incredibly common, potent, and powerful symbolism in the era and aesthetic that Sunbreak draws inspiration from across various crests and symbols and so on and so forth. There is at least one Frontier Dev as part of the Rise team, and the lead Frontier Dev has said he would very much like to bring a Frontier monster back from the dead, as it were, into mainline series, and Espinas as the Frontier monster, the Flagship, made a good case for it. It all just kind of tied them into a neat package and was fun to think about. But during that whole endeavor, well, I said this: imagine if Sunbreak did had loads of houses of knights, and obviously there's the king and the queen, but there'll be lords and ladies, right? And imagine if each of them had a house symbol that was based on a monster in Sunbreak, a new monster. So like one of the houses has something vaguely wolfy, and they like the Lunagaron, and so on and so forth. I think that could be really quite cool. So basically,
I can see the future!
and you may be like, wait, what are you talking about? It's still just a theory, right? And technically speaking, yes, it is still just a theory. And look, I don't want to imply that I'm over here like, yes, I see all, I know all, I am Monster Hunter. But the reason, well, this video here is existing is because we got a little bit of tease from Suzuki, the Sunbreak director, that kind of almost directly supports this whole idea. So he said the following: hello everyone, I'll be revealing some key phrases from today on. First one, kingdom creatures. This is incredibly exciting, both for the fact that we're going to get some key phrases revealed from today on. That's just delicious theory juice, isn't it? I can't wait to sup upon. But kingdom creatures, how best do we interpret that? Well, to me, the answer, again, seems to be staring us in the face, i.e. Rondine's ship, i.e. the crests, the sigils, the heritage, the coat of arms laden upon it. We are getting a medievally-esque type, knights, castles, kingdoms, a lot of inspiration from that era, themed expansion, along with the monsters and stories and folklore creatures to go with it. And if one thing is consistent with that era, and hell, people still love them today, is heraldry. A family's coat of arms. The banner that's carried into battle. Well, essentially logo that symbolizes who they are and what they stand for. Now, obviously, disastrous ending that has really made me go from loving it to being completely I just don't care aside, Game of Thrones put this kind of concept right into the public eye, with every house in Game of Thrones having the house crest and the words and so on and so forth, but that was taken directly from history. That's actually what happened. So you have stuff like the Starks with a direwolf on their banner, you have stuff like the Targaryens with a dragon on their banner, because they were actual animals in that world that they felt they had an affinity with and represented their ideals and morals as a family. And, well, yeah, that echoes through history too. There is so many different heraldry, crests, coats of arms. There is covered in flowers, in birds, in like lions and dragons and fish and whales and stags and deer, and just every single creature that you could think of is emblazoned somewhere. Owls, you have griffins, you have phoenixes, you have legendary animals, and even down to the most loyal man's best friend, the dog. You have it all, and it all looks fabulous when you really do get down to it. So, for example, this is the coat of arms of Edward V of England, and as you can see, it's got a stag, it's got a lion-y type creature on the left, and a second lion adorned with the crown on top, and a bunch more lions in the middle, and, well, a weirdly uncomfortable amount of tongue action everywhere. But that aside, lions were often a very popular choice because lions, well, you know, a lion, the pride, the power, the king of the jungle, the status, the symbolism that goes along with it, it is quite the potent choice. But hell, even some of them had bloody unicorns on, of all things. So, yeah, the variety is, well, variety-full. Is that a word? I feel like it might be a word, but I mean, it could. In any case, what does this have to do with Sunbreak then? Well, I imagine that's kind of fairly obvious at this point. We have these crests represented in Sunbreak. We have at least 4 of them, because there is 4 of them on Rondine's ship. So if we know that this expansion draws from, well, accurate historical sources, which so far it seems to be, and so far, like, essentially every Monster Hunter game has quite faithfully adapted real-life concepts into the vibe and aesthetic that they were going for, and there's no reason to believe it will randomly change now, not when it already is very much going in that direction once again. So what do we have then, looking at it? We have this black-green crest with a red dog-wolfy-esque type creature on it. This one then could easily be Lunagaron, though of course he is not red, but you can kind of get creative with the colors when it comes to these crests. But certainly speaking, I would be very shocked if this red wolfy thing isn't, well, representative of a new monster in Sunbreak, and it would be a new monster, right? Because it would be weird if this reclusive kingdom of Sunbreak has on its crest monsters that are popular, or populous, I should say, around the rest of the Monster Hunter world. Obviously, just for expansion's sake, it's cooler if the new houses of Sunbreak, or however it's divided, the people there and the coat of arms have the new monsters, because it helps reinforce them, and that, you know, is backed by this tease of kingdom monsters. One monster to represent each kingdom, or each army, or each royal family, or, you know, each subsect beneath the king and queen of this land. Incidentally, I should mention at this point that kingdom monsters could also translate as royal monsters, which, if we look at something like Stories 2, they were individual, incredibly powerful members of an otherwise normal species that were a challenge, so maybe this implies that in Sunbreak there will be, like, super versions of monsters, but we kind of get that in every Monster Hunter game, right? There's always a mechanic that enhances base monster's strength to provide a kind of endgame challenge, so teasing that doesn't really feel like a tease so much as a, of course there will be. So unless this means each house will kind of back or really have an affinity with an individual member of each new monster species that is particularly powerful and, like, named, but I think that would be a little bit far even for Monster Hunter. But in any case, I wanted to mention that potential take on this. Back to the crest then, we have this next one, red and gold, and this one's fabulous. It's got the flowery symbol, which I definitely also think, like with the Espinas example, could directly correspond to a monster, and then the bird, which admittedly is a symbol that really could translate to real life. It just looks like a swallow or something, but of course this is Monster Hunter, and they're not going to put a literal representation of the monster there if it's going to just be a subtle little hint that was already in Rise. But I would not be surprised if this bird does represent a monster in Sunbreak. Not at all. A new bird wyvern, perhaps quite the majestic one, and the thing is, it's mirrored on Rondine's crest, which is this green green, gold, and white one. We know it's her crest because it shares the symbol on all of her flags and decorations, shares the color scheme with her armor and her boat. This is definitely the house that Rondine belongs to. And it also has this bird on it. The boat, of course, is because she's a trader, and that's common imagery and symbolism too. It became a symbol of profession, did heraldry signs as time went on, so that works for her. But this bird is shared by both the red crest and green crest. And if we look at the red crest colors, that's the same colors as supposedly who we all think is Rondine's sister that shows up to fight the Lunagaron. So could it be that Rondine and Rondine's sister, despite of course being sisters, are perhaps part of different houses, different core family groups? Maybe they each married a different lord and are therefore taken that different name and therefore technically are in a different crest banner, despite of course still remaining sisters, but maybe these two houses are connected, are allies, and that's why they both have this same bird and both have an affinity for the same monster, and that would kind of work with Rondine and Rondine's sister and maybe provide some sort of narrative or intrigue for conflict or not. But in any case, that's quite a cool little food for thought. Though that said, you also do have this anchor, golden anchor on red crest that Miss Royal Matter is using. It's on her shield, it's on her boat, so perhaps that's her crest, and this red and gold one is nothing to do with supposedly Rondine's sister. Even if this is Rondine's sister, for all we know, this might be the literal queen of Sunbreak, who just happens to be young and not, as we assume, perhaps this old stately queen, and it's like Rondine's somehow mother that just looks good for her age. Who even knows at this point? But this crest in of itself is also interesting. You could argue it has birdie motifs, but I think it is quite literally an anchor, but that could still represent some sort of sea-based creature, though likely this one is an object crest, but still interesting to note. And then of course we have the quite clear white and green stripy monster that we're definitely totally getting with this totally not just filler crest on the far left. Now, colors are important. There was a distinct color code for these coat of arms because you had to be able to see them across a battlefield. They had to be distinct, they had to be clear, they had to be bright. So there was a lot of meaning carried within. Red then is the warrior color, its military strength, its power, which again ties in well to this mysterious new, perhaps Rondine's sister character coming in, royal mattering it up and fighting the Lunagaron. That is power, and her crest seems to be red for it. Gold, of course, is for generosity, for riches, for elevation of the mind. So that's interesting to see too, and I can totally see if this red and gold crest turns out to be the one for the actual queen of the land of Sunbreak. Green, then, is hope, joy, loyalty, love, which I think is fairly well-placed themes for Rondine, given what we know about her character, what her mission is to try and find a way to help her kingdom, and given that she'll be such a prominent character in the expansion, giving her those nice, happy traits makes sense when she's going to interact with the player so much. So that's quite cool to know, too. So, basically, yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. Through a combination of knowing the setting, knowing that they like to accurately represent their settings, knowing how these crests work in real life in that setting, coupled with a teaser from the director supporting that idea, it is fairly easy to say that these crests, the symbols on them, might very much represent new monsters in Sunbreak that are yet to be revealed, and that's very cool. Both because new monsters, but also to see this medieval coat of arms system perhaps actually playing a role in Sunbreak, which as someone who loves that era is just wonderful to see. So, I hope you enjoyed that little diversion, and indeed, well, it gets you thinking too. Let me know your thinking thoughts on my thinking thoughts, and until next time, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, please consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.